the second half of Boston College's game against SMU said everything. Their offense fell apart, their defense couldn't make a stop, and BC gets blown out at home.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. I want to tell you, part of the Locked On Podcast Network is Locked On Boston College, now the #1 sports podcast network. We are a free daily Boston College podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I've been covering Boston College for over 10 years. If you're looking for inside analysis, you are in the right place. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. On today's show, we are going to recap the SMU disaster. Moving forward, what are some last thoughts about this game? How the defense fell apart in the second half, and what happened with that offense? It was quite the journey. And to talk about it and go on that journey with me is Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider. Mitch, how's it going?
I'm getting real sick of this journey. That's how it's going. I'm getting every game. It's the same.
Two more left,
and a very weird bye week placement again. Like I really wish, and this goes to the NFL as well, and I hope the NFL goes to 2 bye weeks in the near future. That you can't have this far between bye weeks, and having it in the penultimate week of the season it's just nonsensical. Like what is the point? It just doesn't make a lick of sense to me. So. I'm not sure if the 2 bye week things will continue in college. I think that's kind of a fluke of the calendar. But even then, like hopefully they'll just keep having the bye week sometime in October, because that's when it makes sense, when you can have at most, or at least 4 games on one side of a bye, and at most maybe 7 or 6, because it's just ridiculous.
So there was news ahead of the game as there were injury updates, as Jaden, Skeete, and Bam Crouch both sat out the game after playing and looking pretty healthy last week. I'm not going to guess what that is, but they're at 4 games each, so we can probably take a guess. But Amari Jackson came back, and I thought, let's kick it off with him. I thought right off the bat he looked pretty good. He made some big hits. He had some good coverage. What do you think of Jackson coming back?
I mean, Jackson's been a guy that I've been a fan of, like, since he got on the field as a true freshman. Like, now, do I think he's an elite shutdown corner? No, but he provides such a solid floor as a cornerback. And, look at how much this team has struggled at that position this season. Like, when you have guys like Isaiah Ferris and Max Tucker out there, and even Ashton Cunningham, who's a true freshman. But when you get Jackson out there, a guy who just has played so much more football and knows what he's looking at, he can play so much faster than those guys. Even if, like, he's a good athlete, probably a very good one on the team, but his experience and just ability to process things allows him to play so much faster from a mental standpoint. And you saw that, you saw him, I think, like, come downhill and break up tackle a screen pass for a loss in like the first play. You saw him on a corner blitz get in the backfield on a run play. You saw him break up a pass on 3rd down by arriving at the exact right time. So again, like, the injuries have played such a role in this team, where it's, again, like, if you have a guy that's gone for a game, and it's one guy at one position, it's like, okay, that's something else. But if you have your #1 corner and then also your #2 corner basically out for the entire season, and you're starting middle linebacker and one of your starting defensive tackles, that's going to have a major impact on the defense. And when you see Jackson out there, it's like, oh, like, this is what football is supposed to look like at this position.
Right.
Again, not like how these other guys have been playing for most of the year, because they have just been not good enough. And that's just a fact. Like, and once you start losing starters for a big portion of the season, the ability of the defense to execute what they want to do, even if, again, if you lose one guy, you can make some adjustments to help out the backup. But when you're losing guys everywhere, there's just only so much you can do. And we've seen BC try to do the same things with different guys, and that's been terrible. You've seen them try to do different things, and that has not been much better. So you see when BC runs zone this year, guys just don't know where to go. They don't know how to read their keys, and that's on coaching. But it's also, again, like, when you have guys that are better, they're able to execute those assignments. Again, Jackson's mostly a man corner, but he knows what to do in zone better than some of the other younger guys do. It's just a fact.
So a question about that, because we have a lot of freshmen playing out there. TJ Green play or no?
He did, yes. He played a fair amount of snaps. I mean, I think they played him in the slot for most of this game. Looking at, he did not start technically, but that was probably a personnel thing. I think when SMU came out, they were in base. So he comes in, he played 53 snaps, the sixth most on the team. So he played effectively the entire game. Targeted 4 times, allowed 4 catches for 66 yards, including a long of 36. So with TJ Green, and is playing the slot is especially tough because so many offenses try to get their best receiver in the slot these days. SMU not as much, just because of how they're oriented with their 2 outside guys. But you have a guy like Ymir Knight, who's this speedy, explosive slot guy who obviously gave BC a ton of problems in this game. And Green is a good athlete, but in the slot, it's so much harder because if you're playing on the outside, generally most of the time the receiver is going to break to the inside. And so you can use your leverage, how you align to the receiver, to take that away. And if you get beat to the outside, you go to the sideline as an extra defender. So it's obviously you want your better corners to the outside if that's where the better receivers are, but it's a simpler process. Whereas when you're in the slot, the receiver almost always has a 2-way go. They can run a much greater variety of routes and go anywhere. So you need to be prepared for that. When you're a true freshman like TJ Green, that's just a harder ask.
Okay. And I've never asked you this, but you talk about the younger players, and I apologize, guys. We're not really diving into play-by-play for this game because we've seen this story a million times. But we're talking about some of the themes that came up. You mentioned that playing in zone coverage is tougher for younger players. In high school, is it more that they play more man coverage in high school? Is it just like athlete against athlete, and that's what they just kind of...
I think it probably depends on where you're playing, first of all. I'm not really prepared to make a statement on that as much. I just don't know as much about high school football. What I would say is that I would say in most places, like a lot of high schools are still running like very run heavy offenses. So you're just not seeing as much passing. That's part of it. I would probably say you're seeing you're just seeing simpler zone coverages. So the difference between, like, there's the traditional zone coverage, which is called spot dropping, where you drop to a spot. So like if you're a linebacker, you kind of just back up 5 yards and keep your head in a swivel. If you're outside on the deep 30, you just basically keep dropping back and you keep your eyes on the quarterback. You also have to kind of relate to the receiver, but you keep your eyes on the quarterback and then you break on the ball when it gets thrown. But now in college, and you see this in high school sometimes for better schools that have better talent and better players, you'll see more of the match coverages, which are where, based on how many receivers are on one side of the field or not, if it's 2, if it's 3, are they in a bunch, are they in a stack? The defenders have different assignments based on which way the routes break and at what depth. So if you have, let's say you have like 2 receivers in a stack, and basically your outside corner is saying, like, I'm taking everything outside and deep, and then your inside corner is saying, I'm getting everything inside and shallow. And so, but then obviously the offenses know they'll find ways to like play with that and mess with those rules. And that's where you see like these coverage busts happen, is you can create different looks with that, so that you don't see as much spot dropping these days. These match coverages have taken over a lot of college football because most of it was done to slow down like the spread and RPOs and stuff like that, because you didn't want to just have these rigid rules where it's like you just drop to a spot, because then that's very easy for offenses to take away. It's harder for them to take advantage of these match coverages, which I would imagine most high schools are not doing as much. They are probably doing more standard, either man up, you get that guy, you get that guy, you get that guy, or it's zone where it's like, okay, we're dropping into a traditional cover 4, everybody just drop back to these areas and then we'll figure it out from there. So I think that's kind of the difference you see between high school and college. And then obviously in the NFL, you ramp it up even more, where it's even more complex and you have even more rules to like, and of course, on a week to week, you're like maybe changing some of those rules where it's like, okay, this offense likes to do this with this concept, so we're going to change our rule for how we would deal with a bunch formation. Or basically, bunch formations are really the big one, because those 3 receivers can go any which way. And if you're in man, they'll usually create pick routes or picks and rubs by intersecting the routes. So you want to prevent that from happening. So you basically say, okay, if you're the outside cornerback, you're taking everything that breaks the outside and deep, and then your slot corner will say, okay, you probably have the toughest job because you're going to take the guy on the point and you read him. And then somebody to the inside is saying, okay, if somebody's probably going to break the inside, I'll get them. And then we figure it out from there. So I hope that kind of answers your question. It's honestly, it's hard to do just in speaking. Like if I had like a whiteboard, I could draw this out and show you some of the books that I've read on it, but yeah.
So any other thoughts on the defense? We just kind of went on a tangent about the young defenders.
I mean, again, just no pass rush whatsoever. I think they had 4 pressures in this game on Kevin Jennings and whoever the backup was. And they got it on the first drive. Like that was when they got their sack. And you're like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe they'll get something. And then nothing after that. Just not a bit. And part of that does go to Kevin Jennings' ability to evade sacks. But before that, guys just aren't getting into the backfield in pressure. They're just not able to do. They're not able to break into the pocket and affect the quarterback. Which when you can't do that, and the quarterback has all day to throw, it doesn't really matter if you have a great secondary. You're like the quarterback's going to pick you apart. So that's just been a problem for this team the entire year. They haven't been able to fix it just because I just don't think they have the guys to be able to, like, again, Quintavious Hutchins makes some nice plays here and there, but he's a big step down from a guy like Ezeraku. And like defense or offenses can just like take him away. And then they're like, okay, we don't really need to worry about anybody else because the rest of the defensive line just can't get pressure. And I mean, we saw like Sedarius McConnell return to the lineup in this game as in a rotational role, 0 pressures. They're playing Marable and Quan Williams out there at the same time. Both of them are more run stuffing nose tackles, so that's part of it. And then, you know, a guy like Ty Clemens is out. So you just don't have pass rushing guys out there. Not to mention Owen Stoudemire, who's decent at both. So you just don't have players that can win these one-on-one matchups. And, you know, again, when BC blitzes, they get torched. So I'm trying to pull up the blitzing numbers for this game to see what it was like. So BC only blitzed on 24% of SMU's dropbacks. They got 4 pressures, 1 sack, again, that came really early, a 10% pressure rate. And that's just, I mean, for what it's worth, SMU's pressure rate was only 19%, but they got 8 sacks. So like sometimes it doesn't perfectly correlate, but generally the more pressure you get, the more sacks you'll get. And, you know, BC just can't get any pressure whatsoever. And so they're not able to get sacks and affect the quarterback and lead to negative plays for the offense, positive plays for the defense.
Before we hit our break, I also want to say having Josiah Griffin bat up a ball and intercept it was not on my bingo card.
No, considering he has basically not played, I think since the Stanford game, at least on defense, he might have played on special teams here and there. Yeah, he played 3 snaps against Notre Dame last week. And then before that, he hadn't played since the Stanford game, in which he played 2 snaps. So yeah, just they're trying everybody. They're getting guys out there, but it's just like, if these guys were going to be able to affect the quarterback, they would have done. I mean, I will say the one guy who I thought has popped occasionally in the last few weeks, Israel Oladapopo. They have not played him recently, so that's frustrating because I thought he's had some nice plays. So yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say about this defense. They just don't have the guys, and they've tried again. Like it's an indictment that the coaching staff does not have an answer, but they have tried everything. They have tried blitzing, they've tried not blitzing, they've tried zone, they've tried man, they've tried all this stuff, and just nothing's working. And again, that's on them for not getting the right guys on the team in the portal. It's on them for not having any answers. But, you know, at the end of the day, the guys on the field are making the plays or not making the plays. Yep. And so that's a big part of this.
All right. In a moment, Mitch and I are going to look at the offense. We'll talk about the offensive line that led up 8 sacks. We saw 3 quarterbacks and a whole lot more. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sodas to spatulas. I'm always looking for new holiday decor in my house. Drive my wife crazy buying new Christmas stuff, but I always get good stuff on Wayfair and at a great price. So don't miss out on the early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all for making Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. And to our everydayers out there, thank you so much. It's not been an easy season, but I'm glad that you continue to get your news and analysis from us here at Locked On BC. All right, now let's talk about the offense. 2 straight drives. I like that face. 2 straight drives. Excuse me. I have also a humongous head cold right now, so if I squeak, I apologize. It's part of the yearly tradition here at Locked On BC. 2 straight drives for Grayson James that end with fumbles. What happened? Was that him? Was that Crounce combination? What happened on those?
So bad snap was on him and Crounce. The snap was low, but it was catchable. It did bounce off James's hands. It didn't like just go on the ground. That was in the air. Again, low, bad snap, but James can't corral it. Kind of some bad luck because their Turbo is to James's left and they're handing off across from him. And so Turbo is kind of moving forward and he kicks the ball right into the blitzing edge defender. So that part is kind of just bad luck, but both the quarterback and the center are at equal fault there. The strip sack, that is, in my opinion, mostly on Kevin Klein because he gets beat by an absolutely elite inside spin move by Isaiah Smith. Their one edge rusher had a great game. Basically, as soon as Kevin Klein touches Smith, he hits him with an inside spin move, and Klein doesn't react to it at all. And it's a bit of a longer developing passing play, and the receiver is open. Reed Harris is wide open on dig route, and James sees it, and he is throwing it. But it's just timed up perfectly with Smith getting his hands onto James's arm.
Yep.
Watching the replay, I was not saying, oh, that's definitely an incomplete pass. It was pretty borderline. I think you could argue it either way. I understood why it was a fumble, and I didn't want that to happen, obviously, but I was fine with their decision to uphold the call on the field because he's definitely losing control, even though his arm is moving forward. You can see the ball kind of start to wobble and get out of his hand. So I get it. But that one's on Kevin Klein more so. James is in the pocket. He's doing the right thing. The earlier sack on third down, I think that's mostly on James. He's trying to escape out of the pocket, even though because Kevin Klein is getting beat behind him to his right. So he can step up to his left in the pocket to buy an extra time. And that play is a 4 verticals concept. So you've got 4 guys going down the field. SMU's in cover 2, I think. So they've got guys dropping, or it's cover 2 or cover 4 palms, which is kind of a hybrid of cover 2 and cover 4. But they're covering the deep routes. And the thing is, Jeremiah Franklin just kind of stopping over the ball. If he just steps up to his right, checks down to Franklin, I don't know if he gets the first down on 3rd and 7, but it's close, as opposed to taking a sack, which nothing happens there. But he's trying to escape to his right for no reason. And then, again, Klein gets beaten again back on the inside by Smith. So that was a pretty disastrous few drives. Again, I was kind of surprised by O'Brien's decision to yank him because I didn't think that either of those decisions were, or James's first few drives were like the bad things were not necessarily like terrible decisions on his part. Some of them were just bad luck. But he was not able to really throw the ball. He had the incompletion. We tried to flick it forward to Turbo kind of as he was scrambling. That was kind of fun, but he overthrew it a little bit. Again, kind of a fluky play. I'm not going to get too mad about that. The only other pass was trying to check down to Turbo in the flat, and just he did the thing again where the ball just completely nosedives, which it's happened a few times in the time that he's played. So again, it's kind of surprising that they pulled it that early, but they put in Lonergan. His first drive doesn't really go anywhere because they're backed up pretty far. But then he has some nice drives where, again, he's executing the quick passing game very well. I've been reviewing these drives for the film review piece that's going to come out tomorrow. And that was the game plan that I thought would work really well, where he gets the ball at the snap, and within 2 seconds, the ball is out. And they move the ball really well with that. They did some play action things to move Lonergan out of the pocket, which is good. That protects him from getting pressured. And they hit Reed Harris on those little, the jab counter play where he goes across the formation and Lonergan rolls out and hits him in the flat. They got some big plays off of that, honestly, which was kind of surprising. But then again, the other story is just this team can't execute and can't get guys open in the red zone. Whereas a lot of they failed inside the 5. They failed again inside the 25, where Lonergan got sacked on a cover 0 blitz. And it's a lot of things because they have plays where they I think on that cover 0 where he gets sacked on 4th and 2 in the red zone, they have 6 guys to block and against 6 rushers, but the pressure just gets home too quickly. Guys are not the phrase you would use, and this is mostly for blocking for a kick, a field goal, or an extra point. You need to die slowly. You're going to get beat eventually, but you need to make it last as long as possible. And guys are just dying too quickly. Guys are getting beat too quickly, and it's everybody. It's not. I mean, it's actually kind of funny because the pressure numbers were pretty nice in terms of the players. Because again, what was Lonergan only pressured 11 times, or the quarterbacks were only pressured 11 times on 45 dropbacks. That's a pretty good day. But the problem is when 11 of those pressures turn into sacks, which means guys are getting beaten immediately, the quarterback still has no time. So according to PFF, Crounce, Taylor, and Doherty all did not allow pressure. I would quibble with that a bit. And a lot of them, the pressures were 2 for Robert Smith, 3 for Kevin Klein, which included 2 sacks, and another for Pape Sai, who they said had a sack, and 1 pressure applied to Turbo Richard, which running backs will usually give this up, so I'm not too mad about that. But the tackles are really the problem here. They're just getting beat by these edge rushers, and for both quarterbacks, they was just not giving them enough time. There was a sack later in the game where I think it's pretty clear that one of the SMU defenders basically tried to trip Dylan Lonergan and succeeded, and they did not call that for tripping. So that was a missed call, which would have been, again, the game was out of hand by then, but it's still a missed call, which is frustrating. But once again, the quick passing was working until they got in the red zone. Then it failed. And you had some mistakes by the offense with penalties and drops and such. And then by the time you get to the second half, like it's already a 2-3 score game, and there's just not much they can do.
Yeah, Bill said earlier this week, I think it was on his radio show, that the team needs to have more explosive plays, and you saw that issue. Like they can move they're able to move down the field. It's they're lacking that like killer instinct to get a touchdown.
I wouldn't even say like explosive play, like even if they had no like the same explosive plays, just you got to find ways to score in the red zone because they're getting there, and they're electing to go for touchdowns, which I'm fine with for what it's worth. I know some people were saying, "Oh, you got to take the points." Based on the fourth down model I use, which I was tweeting out during the game, both of those two in the first half were go for it situations based on that model, which I agreed with because you see SMU's offense, like they are going to score points and you need to do that to keep up with them. Field goals are not going to help you win this game. Right. And even if they had gotten a field goal in every drive they went into the red zone in this game, every time they got to the red zone, if they kicked a field goal every time, they still would have needed a touchdown to take the lead going into halftime. So what's the point? You try to score touchdowns. Play calls weren't that good. The first the first one where you have Jeremiah Franklin in the end zone and Lonergan just misses him high. I think that's a mistake by execution by Lonergan because he is scrambling, so that's part of it. But I think he's treating it like a my guy or nobody situation. And on a fourth down, you got to give your guy a better shot at it. You can't be throwing that high. You got to give your guy a better chance to catch. You can risk an interception because an interception is actually, interception would be great for the defense, but it's like it's fourth down. It's kind of a moot point. So that's frustrating. Again, takes a sack on, I think it was 4th and 2 because they didn't have a good play called there. So, and I would say they even ran the ball decently well in this game. Again, they didn't have like a ton of explosive runs, but they had a few 10 or 11 yarders. So those were good to see. I'm sure Richard had a decent game running the ball. You had Grayson James having some nice quarterback runs early in the game, but that's obviously not part of the game plan for Lonergan, who did have some nice scrambles. So that's encouraging. You saw him play a little faster, but he also throws a bad interception, which I'm pretty sure is somebody running the wrong route. Watching that play, you have two guys running the same route into each other. So I think that messed something up, and he thought somebody's going to break a different way, and that's why the throw was bad.
Yep.
So just to kind of, again, the same story where it's just like you see the same things every time, and just not a lot of hope to get it fixed because you just don't see guys stepping up. Players need to step up and play better.
Right.
And they need to make better play calls in the red zone. So that's basically what it is.
Yep. Well, 2 more games left, and we'll talk about what that means moving forward in just a moment. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score to next fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps getting every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. I always go with the Celtics on FanDuel. You can get 3-point shots by Sam Hauser, total points by Jaylen Brown, and pick the spread to get yourself a 3-way parlay. It's easy to use. I can do it. You can do it too. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Locked on Boston College here. AJ Black, thank you all who have made us part of the #1 sports podcast network in the country. So this is great news for Locked On. And I want to talk a little bit about what's next. Before we do that, I just need to say it was so sad to watch that game. I mean, everyone is talking about it. Like it was a circus last week. You had the whole, what's up Trevor thing that became a meme. So that's basically what BC football has become for this year, is going to be the Bill O'Brien meme. He's saying, he's fired up and they're not down and everything. And then they go out there and, by the third quarter, the entire student section's out because no one cares anymore. It was just tough to watch. It was tough to watch, and it just got worse and worse and worse as the game went along.
Yeah, I mean, I think O'Brien was right to the extent that, again, this team, it's not like this team wasn't trying in the first half. They had some bad plays. Again, SMU is a pretty good team, so they're going to make some plays. But then by the time you get to the second half, when it's, a 3-4 score lead, you can definitely see a bit of, we're getting tired of this crap, because, and I can't think of a specific example where guys gave up, but it's just like, you can tell they're just tired of getting their brains beaten in every week on both sides of the ball, because it's really everything. I mean, special teams is like kind of okay, because again, Luca Lombardo's great. punting wasn't terrible.
65-yard punt by Andy Quinn. I know there was no one blocking.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so it's really hard to watch this because there's just not a lot of redeeming qualities, and even when the offense is moving the ball decently well, they're not going to finish in the red zone, so who cares? And then the defense is just getting walked up and down the field without a lot of resistance. Even like in this game, the one thing that I did think was kind of funny is a lot of the time SMU would try to run outside zone. They would get called back for holding. Almost like every play, they would try to do that. It got called back for holding, which has happened a few times this season, which I find interesting. Again, because of the morass of this season, it's just like I'm trying to find the little interesting things, find the humor. So yeah, I mean, it's really tough to watch this team just because they're not. If you're at this point where you're a team that's 1-10 or 1-10, and you haven't beaten an FBS team, and you've been competitive in spurts. I wouldn't say you've competed for an entire game. It's not just players, it's not just coaching, it's everything. Like, you don't get this bad without it being a combination of the two. Right. So I think it's fair to criticize O'Brien. I think it's very fair to criticize O'Brien because I think that, again, part of the roster construction falls on him for not getting good enough players. And then there's been coaching mistakes, maybe not necessarily like in-game, decision making from him. I guess you could say the Michigan State game. So there's been stuff like that, but not getting the right guys on the field, not calling the right plays to both take advantage of the good players you have and try to minimize and hide the flaws you might have in your team. And then there's just been technique and, coaching or execution mistakes where it's like, you're not teaching guys the right way to do things. And because of that, they're losing their matchups and plays are failing on both sides of the ball. So, like you said, 2 more weeks, and now they get to play a top 15 team in Georgia Tech who runs an even more complicated offense that is just going to have this defense spinning. So, not really looking forward to that.
Syracuse is really bad.
That's true, but I mean, so is BC. So I mean,
it could be just the way to end the season.
Yeah,
just too really.
I feel like there should be like an FCC warning, or like that should be like TVMA or something, or just like not televise it, just because it's like this shouldn't be consumed by the viewing public because it's going to be some of the worst football you'll see in the FBS, especially in the Power 4 in that game because it's good. I mean, it's going to be a nightmare. Again, like I don't want to be negative at this point, but when your team is 1-10, there's not much else you can say other than that this team is really bad, and I don't really see a way out for them to stop being this bad, at least until next year.
Yep. Well, we have not been very positive. We're a bit of a downer here, where things are at. But hey, at least I still have this on my soundboard.
What's up, Trevor? How you
doing? Anyways, this is Locked On BC. Mitch, where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitch T. Wolf, WOLFE on Twitter. You can check out my work at Eagle Insider. We'll have the film reviews coming out this week. Offense should be out tomorrow. Defense should be out Tuesday, and then we'll on to Georgia Tech. Who I will say this, like, I really love watching Georgia Tech's offense. It is so fun. It is kind of reminiscent of like the Tyler Murphy offense, honestly. You get a little bit of that, which but just with better players. And Haynes King might not be as explosive as Tyler Murphy, but it's in the same vein. So they're really fun to watch, and at least you'll kind of get treated to seeing something cool in the coming Saturday.
Neat. I cannot wait for the season to be over. But hey, the guys are fighting, and that's, I think, a point I think we're all saying. But for everyone out there, I know it's tough. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I will have recruiting updates. There was a couple of new visitors that I found out about that were on campus this weekend. I'll have interviews up with them. And we'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.